So Dariel, would you say that last night's game for the Panther was sort of fun?
Oh my God, bro. No way.
You get it? Like sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
This
doing
guy
dad
gets
jokes and
it.
not even
Yeah,
dad
this guy
yet.
doesn't get it, I guess.
No. Oh my God.
I hope
It was a
we.
lot of fun actually. So that's not even, it doesn't even apply.
So it
It's
was
not sort of fun. It was like
sort
super
of a
fun.
lot of fun.
We
Yeah.
outshot them like by 30 shots and beat them 6-3. That was a lot of fun.
Well, it's like two empty net goals, right?
No, only one. And we could have gotten more goals, Yeah.
Oh, was it? I thought it was.
No, it was
I,
Stenlin. Stenlin at the end. But no, before that, it was Lomberg and the sort of goal and all that.
for all you Maple Leaf haters out there, this one's not gonna be for you, unfortunately. But stay tuned for the next one. All right, Dario. I know you have a lot of observations as usual. Um, you do nothing all week, but study what happened and watch game tape and all that. So what takeaways do you have from preseason in general? I know you want to focus on the prospect, especially sort of Mackie, and Naus, I think you mentioned as well. So yeah, give us a kind of an overview on your observations. I have a couple, mostly negative things about certain players that won't matter, but
Such a hater.
but I'll let you
Better not be Lundell. You better not be hating on Lundy.
no man, that's my point. Like he's looked great, right?
Yeah.
And like some of the other guys just where are they?
I think the starters are anyway, we'll talk about it, but yeah.
Yeah, all right. I'll let you go first. So you can get your points across and your observations.
Yeah. It's funny, like the reading I do and the things I look into doesn't take that long. I think people like you make it sound like I'm doing all this research. I'm just reading articles and doing critical thinking. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was Justin Sirleaf, and the timing's great because David Dwork for the Panthers, I think is what is it? What does he work for? I forget.
I think it's
only like two
Florida
Hockey
News
Now and Florida Hockey News.
I think he does Florida Hockey News. I think Florida Hockey Now is like Colby and George Richards.
And George Richards, yeah.
And then Jameson does ESPN or NHL.
But Jameson is more like with the team officially, I think.
Yeah, he's either NHL.com or ESPN.com.
Yeah. So anyway, these are the guys. Shout out to all those guys because they do a great job covering the team. But so anyway, like Dork just put out an article on sort of finally getting his shine. To me, he's been the best player actually throughout the entire camp, and I mean by that is the most consistent. He's been the same in every game. He stood out to me, and I've been telling you about him from the first few games of preseason. I'm just really surprised. I guess maybe because I didn't watch him as much in the AHL last year. But this kid, man, like he wins board battles. He anticipates. He goes to the front of the net. He doesn't turn it over. He can be physical. He's strong for his size. He anticipates so well. Like he reads the defenseman coming, turns the right way, keeps the puck. When he loses it, he sprints back. Yesterday in the game, I looked it up and looking at the stats, like his expected goals against was like 0.0.3. It was like some ridiculous number, the best of all the players. And that means that he spent a lot of time on the offensive zone, but also that the defensive play is there. And the other guy who had a number similar to that was Stenlin, who's known as more of a defensive player. So to me, sort of, man, with the hands, the skill, the quickness, he's such a fast skater, and the physicality and how he reads the game. So then I went back because I had read about him in the past, but then I went back and looked up a few things, and I kind of wanted to like, this is what I want to do is just talk to you about what the actual draft sort of profiles were on this guy, and then compare it to how he looks now. And this is from a former coach in the year that he was being drafted. He says he plays the game a lot like Pavel Datsyuk, and Pavel Datsyuk obviously is like became an elite player, but he was a very late round pick, like 6th rounder or 7th rounder, I think he was. He's somebody who's a complete player, 200-foot player, someone who's elusive when he plays the game. And then from a draft analyst, a rugged winger with impressive spot skills and a high hockey IQ. It's not often you see a physical teenage winger who can play and think the game at an advanced level. He gives the opposing coaches all kinds of matchup issues because he can overpower finesse defensemen, but also posterize the stay-at-home types in one-on-one scenarios. He makes smart decisions both on and off the puck and is capable of delivering precision setups in tight windows. We saw it yesterday with the Lomberg goal because he made it not look pass. And he talked about it after the game. He knew that Lomberg was there and made that not look past that, they kind of pass that Reinhardt and Lundell make. And then he has very soft hands and can settle the puck flat while moving at maximum speed. Anyway, like if you read through all his draft profiles, there's a ton of them in different websites, but everything you see is what you are seeing from him now. You're seeing the anticipation, the IQ, the 200-foot game. He's not a defensive player. He's played center. He's played winger. This guy, man, if he continues to develop, he's only 21, only with one AHL year after juniors under his belt, and he was injured last year, so he actually lost some time. But this kid, if he continues to grow, he could be a middle six, like legit middle six player for us for a long time. You can't teach that IQ, man. It's just so smart. So anyway, I just wanted to give him a shine. I think I don't know that he'll make the team. I think that Stenlund and Lorentz and maybe some other guys like Ricci or Lockwood who have a lot of NHL experience or more NHL experience might break in as like backups for Maurice. But sort of it's got to be the first call up. I mean, he's got to be the first, forget Dalby, forget Asplund, whatever. Like it's got to be him. He fits, and he played beautifully with that fourth line, or at least the fourth line lineup with Lomberg and Cousins. They had chemistry, man. Like that could be a fourth line with offensive potential. Like Cousins scored a nasty goal. Lomberg scored a beautiful goal from sort of setup, sort of scored a physical goal in front of the net, crashing the net. Against Tampa with their good players. Yeah, preseason and all that. But Hedman was there and he went and crashed and scored. So I don't know, man. I get that Lorentz and Stenlund need to start. And I think those will be guys that are going to be considered first. Makes sense. You need those guys for playoffs and stuff. But sort of it's like right there for me. He's got to get a lot of minutes in the AHL and then he's got to be ready to get called up. Please bring him up before Dalby, So anyway, that was my first takeaway. This kid just completely blew me away, and it's just fun when that happens. You don't expect it. We've been talking about him. Curiosity. Can he take a step? Or forget a step. He looks like an NHLer. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think during camp, during that tournament, I didn't see much, and I think it makes sense now, right? And Maurice talked about this with Mackie when he mentioned that some players start to perform better as the cuts are made, right? And I think it's just obviously it's the caliber of player that's next to you as well. Last night was the first time that I became a sort of believer because his play along the boards is good. And he obviously has the IQ and the vision. And it's someone that you have to try in your third line maybe or second line. Certain players have certain, I guess, characteristics or how they play that you can kind of tell where they would fit in. Verhaeghe can score, so you have him in the top two lines because he's going to give you goals. And then you have Lomberg and Cousins who are like fourth liners, right? No matter how well they might play a couple of games, they're just not consistent enough, or don't have that IQ to make the right play at the right time or whatever. I think with Sordev, it's going to fit what Maurice likes. I think Maurice probably likes him more than anyone else right now, just because he knows that he can plug him in almost on any line, but especially that third line, you can play around with that. If you move on from Reinhardt after this year, if you don't extend them, that would be a perfect spot for him. Because I think with Mackie, you might want to bring him up to the second or first line since he's skilled and he's gonna score. But yeah, last night was the first time that I was really impressed because you read a lot about the prospects and we talked about them before. You do a lot of research, and by that I mean reading whatever 2-paragraph articles on them because that's all that's out there. But that gives you an idea of what to expect. But then once you see it, he passed the eye test. Let's just say that last night. Mackie played well as well, but I think sort of showed off yesterday. I think him and Stenlund, I really like Stenlund's game. I didn't know he was that fast. That's one of my observations because we barely seen Stenlund play. I think they've been focusing more on Lorentz
Yeah, Stenler was feeling the heat, and I think last night
I think so, man, because he
forget it.
nope.
Like, let me go out there and like ball. He was he had the best stats of all the players last night. Stenler was the best player on the ice yesterday. It was crazy. So anyway, he and Lawrence are going to be fun to have. Like, if these are our center options for the fourth line, dude, the depth plus Sertif and maybe Lockwood, like, even Dalpe, who's like, playing.
Yeah, I know, and I think with Lawrence and Stenlund, because they are centers mostly, especially Stenlund, I think he's only plays center. You can then afford to move up Lundell if Bandit is injured, or you can even move up Lundell on the wing with Barkov if that's what you want to try. You can kind of experiment because you have these two guys that can center your third and fourth line, and you're not really losing anything if you have injuries. I think that's the only downside to Sortif and Mackie. They're wingers.
Well, Sertif, it's a center. Like, he can play center. Now, is he going to be a center at the NHL level? That's yet to be seen. You got to earn that spot. But we don't need him to be a center right now. Like, Luosterainen can play third line center if Lundy gets moved up, and you don't lose much in terms of that ability to play with Reinhardt and other wingers. So I do think we are in a much better shape because we do, and Rodriguez can play center. So, so anyway, we don't need Sertif to play center right away. Maybe he could do that in a couple of years. But for now, the winger it's just fine. We need wingers,
Yeah. I'll counter that, and it's kind of related with Reinhardt. And my only issue with Reinhardt, and especially yesterday, is this is a contract year. So I know that you're set. You're gonna play day one, and you're gonna play the whole year basically, unless you get traded at the deadline. But what I see from Rodriguez, Stanley, Lundell playing well, Luosterainen is playing well, even though he already signed. I know Verhaeghe was kind of injured, so he's looked a little off. Bennett was playing hard until he got injured. I just don't see it with Reinhardt, man. Like, what does he do? I don't know if the stats show a different side of him, but the eye test, I just don't see it. He's not fast. He's not strong on the boards. He does have high IQ. He does make the right play. But I think if you take him out of the power play, that's like half of his stats. I just don't like seeing like that kind of effort when this is a contract year. And if the team is kind of making you wait to even negotiate your new contract, it's for a reason. It's because they want to see. And now with Sortif and Mackie on the wings, like, you got to step up, man. What Stanley did yesterday, it doesn't matter if you're Reinhardt and, you have a $6.5 million deal or whatever a year and you were a first-round draft pick and all that stuff. Like, you got to show off. Like, next game, I expect him to play a little bit harder because, like, they can just trade you or whatever. They're not going to waive you, but they can definitely trade you at the deadline or not extend you at the end of this year and go with Sortif next year. So that's something that
you're
I want to see.
Starting to come around on Reinhardt to my side, bro.
Well, I was looking at his stats, and then I was looking at I forgot what it was, but last year he had like a ton of power play goals. Year before as well. So
and that's okay.
That counts. He's like Barkov, right?
Like, specialist in a way, and that's okay. Like you said before in another video, like, you need those kinds of guys because otherwise the power play really suffers. Is he the best in that role? We could we'll see what Rodriguez does.
Right.
We'll see, but it says everything you need to know. The fact that Rodriguez is the one playing on the first line on the right with Barkov, it seems that that's what they're going to go for, and Verhaeghe instead of Reinhardt, who's been around and who is in a contract year. So I think there's a little bit of like, they know that the third line has chemistry and all that, but listen, for the 6.5 and a player of his caliber, for him to be kept on the third line and for him to not be playing up in the first line to start, I think it says what the team thinks. And maybe they're trying to also not put him in a position where they need to overpay to keep him. Maybe they do want to keep him, but at the third liner with a third line salary. That's the only other strategy I could think of. And he's going to get his minutes because of the power play. But I'm with you, man. I just, he's a good player. Like, if Reinhardt were a third liner getting paid $4.5 million, $5 million, and he gives you the 20 to 30 goals or whatever, like, that's good. Like, I can live with that guy. I don't need him to be showing up for a game. But Lundy yesterday and Mackie in that line stood out. Every time they had the puck, the way they cycled, the way they looked for the open ice, the way they got through guys. Reinhardt made a couple of nice plays, but I didn't see him driving the line. And he's the veteran on that line. He was a first-round pick, and he's played center. So he should be able to drive a line. Could even drive a line with Lundell and Mackie, who are kids still. So, again, we'll have to see how the season goes. It's only preseason. They may be pacing themselves. I know some of the vets are going to take it easy. You know, they need to get back in shape after that long run and all that. But anyway, yeah, man, it's okay to hit on Reinhardt a bit. You know, it's got to show more at 5-on-5, you know. Other people are coming for his cookies, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we can move on from him, get a first-round pick, and save that money, spend it on the defense, and then Mackie sort of start next season. So.
Yeah, and I wonder what the thought process was for Zito with Reinhardt, because that was like a little bridge deal, right? Because he's still young. So I think the idea was maybe to sign him for like another 5 years. Yeah. If he proved it, which he has, like the stats are there, you can re-sign him for 5 years if he's willing to take, you know, about the same amount of money, maybe a little more with the cap going up. I think it's confirmed it's going to go up to 87, 88 mil next year.
Yeah, it's going to keep going up. But the math is, you know, Mackie and all those guys in a few years are going to need more money. So
yeah,
it's
you
not
need
like,
to do a little
you just have to be smart long term. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But
or go the route of like the Devils stuff, like sign those kids when they're like 21, 22 to like 8 years, 8 times 7 or something like
cheap.
That. Great,
because you know the upside's there. Yeah. Well, Senators are doing the same thing. I mean, I think it's a smart. It's a smart way.
I see a lot of teams doing that. Yeah. Even if you do a 10 million a year deal for someone that's very young but proven. Yeah. Well, like they would catch up.
Lock them up now, because if you wait 2 years with the cap going up, they're going to ask for.
They're going to want more money. So that's also going to be telling with like how Zito handles that. I know like Verhaeghe is probably going to wait because he knows he can get paid, 8, 9 in a couple of years, and he's still on the contract for 2 more years, including this season. So like I know with like Verhaeghe does that. Bennett, I think it's very easy. He's already getting paid 5-ish, and he's not going to give you much more.
He's a third liner to me.
Yeah, he's not going to give you much more than what he's already given you. Yeah. He needs to be on the right line and all that stuff, and he's good on the playoffs. Yeah. He's physical. And
so is that your hate take, or do you have another person you want to hate on?
No, as far as hating, no. Like I liked the way Knight played on one of the games. Bob did well. Yeah. Stolarz is. I think he's more like a project. He's just big, but I think his movement is not there yet. And like there was a play.
I don't know if we're going to keep him long term. Meaning like this season, actually, as a third guy, we'll see, because we have Guzda and we have Wave or whatever.
Yeah, Guzda looked good, and he's not a little guy either. So yeah, I think you can ride with Guzda if he does.
Depends on the how many players they want to carry. Because if you carry 3 goalies, I don't think you can send Stolarz to the HL. I mean, I guess you could. You have to waive him.
That's right. I don't think you could.
I mean, you could, but is he going to want to do it?
You run the risk.
He could be a backup in another team, and I think that's one of the main questions that's low key has been ignored. Is like for after this weekend, they have to decide what to do with Stolarz. Because Knight can go down to AHL, but I think Knight can only play like 5 games in the AHL before having to come up. Otherwise, I think he. Again, I'm just kind of remembering what I've heard, but I think he's waivers exempt to start. Like you can send him down, but I think he can only play a certain level, number of games given his contract down there. So he's going to have to come up anyway. Knight is, and you want him as your backup. I mean, you got to develop Knight, and if he's not looking great, then you need to make all the decisions for next season. But anyway, like with his money, Knight's getting the 4.5, whatever it is now. So you got to play him. And so Stolarz might have come in maybe just to like as insurance to push Knight to make sure that like if things in the preseason aren't working with him, maybe he gets a few HL games. Then maybe Stolarz is the guy you keep as a backup. But I could also see them just waiving him and saying, all right, we'll go with R2, and then Gustav or that other guy down there are going to be the third guy for now. Or we could go sign somebody else, because there's a ton of veteran goalies out there you could get for cheap. So anyway, we'll see, because they need to carry, maybe 2 forwards and 1 defenseman versus a third goalie on the team. That would be weird. And Bob can play a lot of games. So anyway, well, yeah, I don't think there's anybody else to hate on. I wanted to sort of highlight another player, and I know you have another guy that we want to talk about. I want to talk about Evan Naus, because, again, I'm trying to go like with the weird picks, unexpected conversations. I don't always want to go I'm trying to be a bit of a hipster here. But Now's the game that he played. I forget if it was Carolina. It was a couple games ago before he was sent down with everyone else. He looked really good to me. And I think actually somebody wrote about it and mentioned that he got interviewed after the game. He impressed me because he started okay in rookie camp, and he's a second-round pick. He's still very young, only 20, which is very young for a defenseman, coming straight from juniors. So even though he spent 3 years in juniors, it's still juniors. It's not college or pro league. And the way he looked in that game really like stood out. Like he is big, he's tall. He needs to bulk up more, but he's tall. He can really skate. He can handle. He anticipated really well. I don't know. There was things that he was doing similar to Sortif, where I'm like, whoa, that looks a little bit more mature than I expected from him. And again, I did the thing of like looking up his draft analysis, and I'm just gonna give you a couple of quick highlights. But this is from FC Hockey. Naus is a clearly intelligent player with incredible in-game communication skills, directing the play not only with his play, but also verbally. Defensively, he is excellent at using his skating and sound positioning to the nice center ice and keep an excellent gap on the back check. He's capable of separating opponents from the puck, and his east-west mobility is excellent and allows to cover a wide range of ice. And then a draft analyst said that the game is not defined by the points or flash, by his awareness, decision-making, and hockey sense. And the sum of all the parts is what makes Nos an effective player. He's a smooth skater and can move through all the zones. And combined with a high IQ, allows him to move around without being caught out of position. So again, the dude is like very defensively sound, which for a defenseman to start, it's a great starting point. Smart in his own zone, great player, can separate people. He's tall, he can skate, but he's also has a sneaky passing ability, which some people talk about. And he's quarterback a power play at times. Reminds me a bit of Ekblad with less flash on the offensive puck handling skills, but he looks faster to me than Ekblad and less clunky. Ekblad is kind of like a clunky skater, actually. And I don't know, man, the way he looked against, a physical sort of system like Carolina's, I think it was a game. So I just think that he needs a year in the AHL to develop and get bigger and see what he's got. I think he's going to get a shot down there. But given his size and his smarts, that is a guy that I'm starting to get excited about, because we do need to develop those guys on defense. We need the depth so that we can save money on the cap. We need to sign a top defenseman eventually. Think about what we're going to do with Ekblad and Montour. And if we can get a guy like Naus next season being like the 7th or 8th guy, that would be kind of cool. And, Benning is also in the mix, but he's a smaller guy. We have to see what he has. He has kind of in the same role as Naus. Benning looked good to me, but he's definitely more of an offensive player. He's not going to be that guy you count on for defensive and draws and stuff. So anyway, man, it just stood out to me, and I want to keep an eye out and then take credit if he breaks out next season, because I called it. But anyway, a lot of people were saying, I'm joking. A lot of people were actually saying that he called it. Zito called it, but yeah, people were saying how some of these guys are possible steals, and with Naus, the reward is pretty high and the risk was low when you look at his draft analysis. And same with Sortif. Like they were saying, like if Sortif gets picked anywhere past the 50th pick, he's going to be a steal. And I think we picked him at 56. So Zito's good at those steals, and Naus too, was second rounder, but he was like ranked in the top 40 for a lot of people, and I think we picked him after that. So
yeah, and a lot of these kids, I know Benning and Naus, they're both signed for 3 years. It's almost the minimum. I think based on the salaries, I think Benning was offered a little more. He's making about $100,000 more, almost $100,000 more a year than Naus. But Naus is signed for an extra year. So his contract, this is his first year of those 3 years. And for Benning, this is the second year of those 3 years. So I think maybe they expected Benning to take a step forward, and he hasn't. The Naus, when you look at those contracts, I know they're the minimum, but I think it's telling, you're signing these kids for 3 years because you want to see what they can do. And let's see how that goes, man. I think Zito's just being smart with the prospects, man. He he's now has, he has all these kids, 4, 5, 6 kids that can break out at any moment. So you already see it with sort of, and obviously Mackie. So yeah. No, my only other observation is actually, we talked about it last night watching the game, texted back and forth. It was Casey Fitzgerald. He stood out, man. I think he's just trying to get that 7th spot, because I know I read before the game, I forgot who said it, but the idea was to see who can make that 5 through 7 defenseman slot. So 5, 6, 7. Obviously, you have Mike Riley, Casey, and what was the other guy on the first defensive pairing?
For who? What do you mean?
For the Panthers, the first defensive pairing last night. It was OEL and Basiski. What's his name?
Oh, Belinsky.
Yeah,
I think is his name.
Basilis.
Yeah, he looked okay. He's just more of an offensive player, but
yeah, that Basil guy.
Man, don't be.
Bro, you don't even know his name, bro.
I don't, but don't, like, it's not Basil,
Amateur ass podcast.
I think he's Latvian. Yeah.
Oh, congrats. And that's from your research.
Don't be xenophobic, man.
Yeah, man. I was just looking at the contracts. I think Evan Niles probably has a higher chance of making the team next year if he does well. And then for Mike Benning, I think they're looking on offense, which is kind of what I like about OEL. That's the other guy I wanted to talk about. But I think on offense and on the power play, I think OEL is going to be really good. I don't know about on defense, but we already have bad defense from Ekblad anyway.
No, he looked better in the playoffs, man. I want to be fair. I've been I hate Ekblad. Like, I've hated Ekblad, and
he was asked to defend more in the playoffs,
and he did well. And he cleared the net. He's physical, and he got into it. And he's a big guy. And
he only had a couple mistakes, and he's known to
And he was
panic.
hurt. Last season he was hurt. He struggled to adapt to Maurice's system, because I don't think he's ever been asked to really care. And early on, he was out of position a lot, and it stood out because some of the other guys were learning. And I think I want to be fair to Ed Black, because the skill is there, and I could see it in the playoffs. If he changes his game a little bit and just accepts the fact that he could be a second pairing, he won't be the start. He'll continue to be a top pair with Forsling probably, but if he can accept being a second pairing defenseman who's a little more responsible, stays back, uses his body, and then jumps in when he makes sense and uses his skill when it makes sense, and maybe can be in the second power play unit versus the first, that it's, and maybe get paid accordingly to that, like kind of where he's getting paid now going forward, a similar contract like that, I would keep him for that. If he's looking for a raise, he's got to go somewhere else. But but I think that I can see him being much more comfortable this year, hopefully healthier. We'll see. That's always a question mark. So I want to be fair to him, but I think it's a luxury to have him and OEL and Forsling and Montour once they're all back. I think that's a formidable defensive unit, and OEL looked good on the defensive end yesterday. Actually, he made a couple of really good plays. He's a big guy, long stick. I don't know. He skates better than Ekblad side to side. I think he like straddles that blue line on the power play much better than Ekblad can, and he gets his shots through. His shots don't get blocked as much, and that was sort of what they were talking about him. So anyway, OEL has looked really good to me so far in the games he's played. And that's a good sign for us. We just need him to be consistent. And Fitzgerald, I think Armando from Locked On Panthers said that he's pretty much locked at that 7th spot right now. I mean, that's going to change once everybody's back, but he did look really good. Not just hitting people, but defensively he's sound. He can skate fast. He's not a big guy, but he's just very physical. And I think he looks better than last year. He looks more confident. Like, he looked like he belonged yesterday. And so I can see why Maurice has always liked him. So if it's your 7th guy to start, and then beyond that, it's whoever, like Kierstad or, Carlson or whoever you want to bring up, that's not too bad. So anyway, we got depth, man, finally.
Yeah, we have a lot of depth. And like young. They're young,
not the stalls.
Veterans, yeah. Dalpiece, I feel bad for him, but we can do away with that.
He's a great guy. He's an AHL, man. He's an AHL.
Yeah, he can just sit there.
He's like 31 or whatever. He's older.
Yeah, no, he's like 33.
Oh, 33, yeah.
He was 32 last year when I checked.
Close to retiring, yeah. He's got
something like that. Yeah. All right, let's transition to Mackie. Matthew Samoskevich. I know you're very high on him. I am as well. I still think he needs a little bit of work. That's why I was impressed with Sordiff last night. I think he looked more NHL ready than Mackie a little bit. But I think with skill, the skill that Mackie has, and these are guys that you need to play. You have to play them. You can. Maurice talked about that. You mentioned it earlier. You can't just have him, sit back or go down to the AHL and he's gonna look great there. But what do you gain by that? So, but the Panthers are also trying to win. So I don't know. But yeah, I know you want to do like an in-depth conversation on Mackie and your observations. So
I think just what he means, like what he signifies or symbolizes for us. Like I will say, just as a player, he is not Sordiff, right? Like you also have to understand, Mackie's never going to be the guy who's going to slam somebody on the board. So I mean, he could hit people. He's probably never going to be that guy. He's not going to be Bennett. He's not going to be even Verhaeghe, who's bigger. But he can turn in short spaces way better than any of those guys. He has a hell of a wrist shot, which is really, really useful because if we know because Reinhardt doesn't, and that's why he doesn't score at 5-on-5 because he does get the chances. He just like hits the post or misses the net. Mackie's a lot more precise and quick. He's a fast skater, can get around people, which we don't have a ton of those guys, to be honest. Lomberg is like our fastest guy sometimes. So, he has played with the fourth line. He has played with the top line so far. They've moved him around right wing, left wing. He's going to be more inconsistent. But overall, even on the defensive end, I was telling you yesterday, because sometimes in his shifts, I just watch him, even when he doesn't have the puck, because these games don't matter, so I'm not watching the puck so much. And watching him, he reads the play. You can see him shift into the middle of the ice when he has to on the defensive end. He actually stole a couple pucks yesterday. He got the pucks out, and I love the Maurice put him out there to kill the 6-on-5 when they went with the empty net. They were taking a draw on the defensive end, and Mackie, they changed lines, and he put him out there. And Mackie was the one that got the puck out. So that to me seems like Maurice is testing him and put him in these kinds of situations to see how much he can be trusted on this offensive end. And I think he's proven so far that he can be reliable enough as a 20-year-old who was not a top 10 pick, So let's keep that in mind too. He's still just developing and will continue to develop for the next 2 to 3 years. So anyway, I think the high-end skill, everything's there. And Maurice already said it. Maurice, he's very conservative. So once he says he's going to play, and that could be in the AHL, but he made it sound like he wouldn't put him on the bench with the team. Then they're sold on him. I think they're sold on him. I think they've seen enough. I think they just need to work with him and train him up and find the right spot. I actually think the third line is the right spot. That's a different conversation. We'll talk about it some other time. Let's see what happens when the season starts. But I think I'd rather see him with Lundell and Reinhardt than on that second line. I don't think he fits that line this much after seeing them. But I just want to say, man, like we need those guys. The Panthers have missed those kinds of picks. We need those kinds of picks, like Sordiff, Mackie, cheaper to start, put them on the wing, skill, trust them 2 ways, good system, good coaching staff. It saves you so much money. You can now next year, the Verhaeghe question, it's less pressure if Mackie works out on the right wing because he could become the first line right winger next season with Barkov, and then Verhaeghe can either be re-signed or leaves and we sign him free. But now you only have to worry about 1 winger versus 2. Same with Sordiff. If you plug him into a 4th or 3rd line, 1 fewer guy to worry about, and you can trust his skill. And his high-end skill, better than Cousins, better than Lawrence or whatever, different kind of player. So I think Mackie just means that the more we can churn these guys out, and maybe Jack Devine and Sauching will be sort of the next evolution of that in the next 2 years, and we'll see if either of them. But right now, they look like they're on their way to maybe becoming that, and they have looked good in camps. I just think that the thing to remember about Mackie is that it's the excitement. You want to get the jersey. Can he score 20? Fun rookie, skill, flashy, fan favorite, all that. Everybody's talking about him, a million articles now. But what I really care about is the fact that he gives us so much depth for years to come. Like he makes the Barkov and Kachuk evolution as they get older much easier transition when you have Mackie and Sordiff as like the next wave, and then maybe some other guys after that. And it's just refreshing to actually see it. There was the buzz, the hype, and the kid came through, and he's earned it. And I personally think he should make the team to start of the season. and he should get a shot. I mean, if he stinks
I
the
think
first
so.
10 games,
No,
if he stinks the first 10 games, you send him down. But
yeah,
yeah.
I think he might. We'll see. We'll see, because you can always Stanley or Lawrence. You can just leave them. They can be a healthy scratch, right? We can carry you forward. That will probably be it. But there's just not enough space right now, so we have to see how they handle that. If you can send them to the AHL without going through waivers, then it might be best. But yeah, I don't know. It depends. This is a tough decision because Stanley looked good yesterday. Lawrence has looked good.
Yeah. But it's a spot, because Maurice talked about it. What you have to remember is that Mackie in the AHL, I mean, it's kind of unfair to say, but his type of player, he's wasting his time down there. You know the skill's there. Like, he doesn't even, it's not like Tage Thompson or like people who were late bloomers, and you're like, Verhaeghe. Verhaeghe had the talent, but he hadn't shown it enough. You know, people kept trading him Toronto, Tampa, whatever. And eventually through the AHL, he started to break out and show that potential. Tage Thompson had a breakout year, and then I think in the AHL, and then, you know, he's a superstar now, basically. Mackie's less of a question. You can see the skill. He's scoring his pass. Yesterday, he made a nasty pass that, you know, he got stopped, but he made a hell of a pass yesterday. On the power play, he turned around with two defenders coming at him and got the puck down, made the right play. Like that, at this level with that speed, like, you can trust him, you know, and he's going to make mistakes. I mean, listen, Verhaeghe has been a mess in preseason. He's turning it over. Bennett was turning it over. So Kachuk turned it over. Kachuk looked like crap in his game. So they're going to have a bad game. Like, you also got to give the kid a break. He's not going to be a world beater every game. That's unfair. Lundell had a down year last season, and he now looks better. Like, so give him a shot. That's where I'm at. Like, let him play with the talent. Let him develop. Let him see. Now, if he's like Denisenko, who's getting like 20 games in a season and is scoring one goal or no goals, like, and not giving you anything, and it's a -8, like, you send him down, you know, because then the kid is not. But you got to start him, because we don't. What are you gonna do? Cousins in the second line? I don't want to see that, man. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't want to see that. And
yeah, there's no need now. We have
Lawrence and Stanley compete with each other on the fourth line. Is healthy. There's always gonna be an injury. Like, we have so many guys that are injury prone. Like, let them play in the top six, drop him to the third line if it's not earning that, and move Lustrainen or Reinhardt up, or even Lundell, and you still have a lot of depth at the back end, more talent. You have backups. You can have Lockwood, you can have Richie, you can have Lawrence, whoever the hell you want, and Sordiff, and then it gives you so much more depth. And if this kid takes off and starts to really, really click, you're going to have a good scorer in the playoffs, you know. And next season, you've set him up to come in the second year, ready to maybe be a top line player. You know, he cannot become a top line player playing in the AHL. That isn't going to happen. So he shouldn't go down. Also, there's a backlog in the AHL, man. If you look at that roster, there's too many guys down there. Like, some people are going to get cut. Like, it's just not. And you need to give a chance to other guys to develop. Like, Sordiff makes more sense to have down there because he's a hard worker and he can just stay in shape and then come up. But anyway, I don't see Mackie going down. I'd be surprised, but I just think he's earned it. And why not start him at least a few games? And if Bennett's out, you know, I mean, forget it. If Bennett's going to be out for the first few games, like, you definitely have to keep Mackie, because you're gonna miss some talent. So, but anyway, man, I'm excited, man. I think he symbolizes like a turning over the corner for this franchise of finally being able to trust the generations and the depth and the development.
Yeah, and with Barkov and Huberdeau and Trocheck, Bukestad, that was like a rebuild. So a lot of those kids were drafted high. Ekblad, a lot of those kids were drafted high back then, and they played right away. I mean, Barkov was, I think, 18, Huberdeau as well when they played. So, but that was because you were on a rebuild. When you're trying to win now, it's harder to incorporate Mackie and Sordiff when you have NHL ready players that you know are proven. But I think that's the point. I think like Stanley and Lawrence, again, they're not necessarily proven. The stats are not there. However, they do fit the system. They're physical. They're big. So that's the only question. I'm excited for opening night and seeing what.
Yeah, but to your point, that team, man, like with by the time those guys became 25, meaning the Huberdeaus and Barkov and Trochecks and all that, and they were, you know, they had the talent and the experience, they still couldn't win because they didn't have that next wave of depth around them. whether it was bad drafting or bad signings. It's funny enough that by the time that Zito comes in, and immediately you have Verhaeghe, Forsling, Reinhardt, Bennett, Marchment within the span of a year, basically, all of a sudden it's like President's Trophy because the talent had that support around them, that depth. And then they got to the playoffs and the second round. And of course, they got embarrassed because they were young. They don't know how to win. And they played a unsustainable style for the playoffs. So they needed a coaching change and a culture change. But all to say that's what I'm talking about. We haven't seen that second wave to support your stars in that depth to help you, to push them and to also help you win. Zito immediately brought that, and now we're seeing it through the draft. Because first we saw it with the reclamation projects, the trades, the signings. But now we're seeing it with the actual, and that's what I mean. The excitement to me is this is different. We actually see the proof is in the pudding. These kids are starting to really work out. So anyway, it's makes me feel like we could be like the Pittsburgh Penguins. We could be like the Carolina Hurricanes. We could be contenders for a decade instead of 2 years and then sell everybody. So yeah, man, it's good stuff.
Yeah. I think we're set for a while, and the prospects also allow you to, if this window shuts down in the next 3 to 5 years, Barkov contract ends, then Kachuk's ends right after that. I think then you can transition. You can then either do the same thing you did with Barkov and Hoover, though, and just have these kids grow up in the system and become stars, or you go and look for a superstar. There's always 3 to 5 guys out there that can give you scoring and assist and good centers and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited for the next couple of years. And Mackie, I think, is gonna break out, if not this year, next year. Same with Sortiv. And the competition, as you mentioned, is already there. So that's good. And if they beat out that competition, then that means something, so it's not to be taken lightly. All right. You have anything else? We can wrap it up here.
No, man. Season starting next week.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the season pretty heavy. We'll try to have more videos, reaction videos and things of that nature, previews. And we're also gonna have a lot of takes around the NHL. I think this year, personally, I'm gonna try to watch a lot of games outside of the Florida Panthers, just to kind of have an idea of, now that I understand the game a little bit more. I think as watching as a fan for the past 20 years, I've always just watched as a fan. It's just to enjoy the wins, and now it's more of a, I'm not an analytical guy, or the stats are great and all, but I just like to see who stands out and how we match up with other teams. I think that Vegas final last year was very curious. I know we were super injured, but we were outplayed so bad that it kind of makes you look at the matchups and how we beat the Leafs. And the Hurricanes never really gave us any trouble, even though the Leafs, the Hurricanes, they were the better team. The Bruins were the better team until the last 3 games. So I'm very interested to see how that changes now.
Yeah, and that's why watching matters, David, because one thing with that series, people forget, we simplify everything in our minds, but if we go through the layers, we were super injured, and that's real. We were hurt. Even the guys on the ice, a lot of them were hurt, and that matters. We went through a grind to get there, and Vegas maybe less so, and they were ready because they were bigger, and Vegas had been to the finals already a few years before. A lot of those guys had that experience. That matters a lot. The other thing was Bob was super hot, and eventually, it's going to be a drop-off. So that was another issue. And if you really break down the 5 games, game 1, we were really competitive. And at times the better team, but we were in that game and we were competitive. We beat them another game. And then the other game at home, we were competitive. And we emptied our net and tried to go for it. And we're close to pushing to overtime. So for 3 out of the 5, we were there. We just got blown out in the other 2. But, the chasm isn't as big as we think. And they had a lot of health. They didn't have a ton of injuries. They had a deep-ass team. With a hot goalie too. So again, those things all come out. If you play that series again with more experience with the Panthers, more health, more skill, you know what I'm saying, and more, and ability to compete, maybe you do beat them in 6 or 7. So I don't think we're as far apart as that series looked, but we tend to overlook all the little details. But that's where watching the games and understanding that, and looking at Vegas physicality, scoring, experience, the coaching, Cassidy. You know, they were set up to win, and good for them. And I don't think they'll win this year, but good for them.
No, but it might be different for the Panthers as well, just like you mentioned, and we might just get eliminated, even though we might have a better team.
Exactly. That's what you need. You need to be a contender so that you're going to get that 1 year, maybe 2. But not everybody can be the Lightning. Not everybody's going to be the Blackhawks. You can shoot for that. You got to shoot for be the Bruins. Got that 1 or 2 titles and a couple other finals like that. That's actually great. So anyway,
all right, let's wrap it up there. Don't forget to hit like on the video, guys, and subscribe. Like we mentioned, we're going to have a lot of content coming out the rest of the season, and it'll kind of evolve as we go. So just stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys next time.